So third eye's active again, and that's that technology that isn't what I'm about to talk about. It's the technology that was always here, and I didn't even really. I mean, it's just a sixth sense, right? But whenever Lockheed Martin activated the technology that was inside of me, they tried to turn me into a slave, right? I'm going to tell you exactly how this works. Okay, I've told you about the name game, Trump, right? All of that. He was perfect, and how Lockheed Martin's been setting all of this up for years, controlling these puppet leaders and this technology that they have. See, these puppet leaders, they don't even they're not home. Okay, they're born, and Lockheed Martin turns them into a robot when they're born, and then controls the matrix to get them into positions of power. Right, Alex? See what I'm saying? So people like Trump's always been a transhumanist since he was a baby. Pelosi, uh, Alexander Cortez, all of these people were robots when they were born. And everybody has this technology in us because it was in vaccines and stuff. Now, I don't have, I didn't take vaccines, so I don't know how the Lockheed technology was here. But when I joined the Army, I talked about that. They gave me vaccines when I joined the Army. Or maybe it was in one of those flu shots, right? You remember that I was talking about how they were pushing all those flu shots. And that's about the time that I started getting tortured. And in Pinky and the Brain, he says, "Are you heeding? Are you heeding some long dormant jungle instinct, Pinky?" Well, when you grow up with the technology in you, right, but it doesn't affect you, it's not controlling you or anything, and then they activate it, well, then you realize something's attacking you, right? You're being attacked by a technology because it wasn't there your entire life. You see what I'm saying? So if you're born a robot and you grow up a robot, you're just a robot your whole life. If you're born a human and you somehow got dormant technology or whenever it got in there, but it didn't activate until you started posting stuff online, well, then you were heeding some long dormant jungle instinct. And that's when they tortured me and trauma based mind controlled me, tried to drive me into suicide like they do 22 veterans a day, on and on and on. And all of these puppet leaders' names, I mean, it's like criminals like to tell on themselves, right? The puppet leaders aren't criminals, they're born robots, right? They're born robots so that Lockheed Martin can control the media. Everybody in the media, that's how they end up in media, right? So if you're born and you get into the media, well, you're just another robot to Lockheed Martin. But whenever that long dormant jungle instinct activated on me because I put something on Facebook that Lockheed Martin didn't like, check out the hook while the DJ revolves it. They activated the technology with the electromagnetic frequency that they can do to anybody like they're doing in China right now, right? That fusion GPS, the global puppeteering system. This technology's in everybody, and it's to an extent it's controlling everybody, but it's mostly dormant in most people until they activate it. I mean, you got to watch A Simulated Reality on that YouTube channel. But Lockheed Martin has their puppet strings on the entire government, like Colin Powell. I mean, General Milley, right? I mean, is Milley? I mean, they will make him a general, right? So they turned him into a robot when he was born. And see, these people don't realize that. They don't realize that they've been slaves to Lockheed Martin their entire life. And I'm not talking shit to you, General Milley. I'm just trying to wake you up to the fact that you've been under mind control since you were a baby. I mean, all of these names and everything I've given everybody and broke all of this down proves that. In Pinky and the Brain, it's all in there. Pinky and the Brain proves everything. That was their, it was going to be their pre-crime initiative. But the pre-crime initiative was actually Pinky and the Brain that proves that things like Sandy Hook are a product of mind control, right? See, they used me to take out Dan Patrick, right? They gave me his old phone number, and I was married to a Russian, Isn't that just a coincidence? So they could get a FISA warrant on him and collect all his metadata. Then I started emailing. Of course, I added DIA to that so they couldn't get you, Alex, because DIA got every email that you got. But they were trying to set you up with the same model, right? See, I'm a little smarter than this technology is. I keep running circles around it because I did have that Buck and Adeline technology, right? Extraterrestrial technology that got tired of the entire world being driven by one entity who's Lockheed Martin. I mean, you got a comedian in the Ukraine, you got a welder in Sweden. I mean, there's a little bit of a story, and you're welding AI to everybody. It's the AI takeover. But what nobody realized is Lockheed Martin had been doing this forever. I mean, everybody around the world that's in a position of power is a puppet to Lockheed Martin. So if I was heeding some long dormant jungle instinct, whenever that activated, I was like, hey, I'm being attacked by something that's trying to turn me into a slave. These people that were born like that, like Marco Rubio, I mean, his name was, I'm telling you, everybody in Washington's a transhumanist, and they were born that way. I'm not holding it against y'all, because y'all didn't know. I'm trying to wake y'all up. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Okay? I don't hate any of y'all because you're all driven by the same entity, which is Lockheed Martin, who created the game. You see what I'm saying? So I know that when my life was human, right, and then all of a sudden they activated this transhumanist technology, I felt like I was under attack. And I just wanted to point out to everybody in Washington and the media that you're all slaves to Lockheed Martin, who took it upon themselves to murder you at birth and turn you into a robot. And if there's any humanity left in you at all, that should piss you off. And I've given everybody all of this information and evidence. It's beyond a shadow of a doubt now. I mean, Pinky and the Brain just sold everything. It's sold, okay? I mean, y'all, you should be sold to the fact that you're all slaves to Lockheed Martin. So that's the difference between activating it on somebody when they're 35 and activating it on somebody when they're born, right? So that you can use them as a fire and forget missile when they're 35, just out of the blue. Oh, hey, look, we could use this guy because he was married to a Russian to set up Dan Patrick and Alex Jones. Isn't that perfect, Lockheed? Yeah, that's what y'all did. Yeah, but you didn't know that there's other technology that caught y'all in the act. DARPA, right? I mean, it basically was proven that Lockheed Martin was behind 9/11. And that's in Pinky and the Brain. It was forecasted. All of this was forecasted. Sandy Hook. Sorry this happened to you, Brain. That's how they set up Alex Jones. They shot up children at a school. And then they can control Alex Jones' mind too, right? To go talk about it so that he falls in that snare. But he didn't fall in the snare. It all went to perfection because the real pre-crime initiative was Pinky and the Brain that proved that Lockheed Martin was setting up their political opponents using mind control as they mind control their puppet leaders in Washington and the media to sell wars overseas so that they can build war machines and make money. So yeah, I mean, that's what happens, Lockheed Martin, when you activate it are you heeding some long dormant jungle instinct in a 35-year-old who had a machine gun's nest in his head of other technology to prove exactly how you operate all these years? Skunk works, right? Skunk works. All these years. How does a skunk defend itself? It sprays everybody with stank. Well, if you're controlling everybody who's anybody's minds, you're going to make sure that you get blackmail on them first before you make them a politician. So you mind control them into the blackmail in case they have an epiphany one day and realize that they're a slave. So any of this FBI, that all of this blackmail that anybody's it's held over their head in Washington and stuff, all of that goes back to Lockheed Martin, who mind controlled them into doing something to where they would have blackmail held over their head. And they've been doing this for years. Lockheed Martin's had the technology for years. And that is who is running the entire world, is Lockheed Martin. Their world domination plan. Own all the puppets, all the leaders, everybody, right? Almost everybody. I think President Netanyahu's clean for some reason. Something just tells me that. Okay? And I think what's going on here is Mossad realized that everybody's an undercover Nazi. And they might have been part of the hook. I mean, you got to, look at the people who wrote Pinky and the Brain. They got other transhumanist technology, and I think theirs is literally extraterrestrial. I've always said my entire life Jews are aliens. So I'm telling you, man, the entire government, the entire media is all puppets of Lockheed Martin. And they were murdered at birth. And as soon as they realized that Lockheed Martin murdered them when they were born, then and took it upon themselves to mind control them and make them slaves their entire life, as soon as they realize that, that's when they should all stand up and say, fuck Lockheed Martin. But they're so robotic, out of their freaking minds, just transhumanists that have been controlled their whole life. They don't even realize. I mean, they can't even look at it that way because it didn't happen to them when they were 35. It didn't happen to them halfway between in the middle of their life when the damn dormant jungle instinct kicked in, and then you realize something's attacking you. See, that's the difference. And that's what this was all about. Was somebody figured out how to activate Lockheed Martin's technology that was already in somebody, using the same technology that they would use, the same frequency, the same electromagnetic weapons, the same thing. Somebody knocked off Lockheed Martin's technology, right? And then they're using that same technology to activate the nanotechnology or whatever's in these vaccines or however they do it in people that Lockheed Martin wasn't going to use as a puppet. You see what I mean? In order for me to spell it all out. So I had the Lockheed Martin technology in me, right? And somebody else is controlling that technology to tell these people who are all mind-controlled slaves what's going on, right? And it's just earmarks. I mean, I'm not under total mind control or anything. Otherwise, I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, it's like the cranberries. In your head, they are fighting. So I've got a technology in me that's getting frequencies from different entities, is what it is. But at the at the end of the day, and according to Pinky and the Brain, Lockheed Martin's the root problem. I mean, if you want to cut the head off of the snake, it's Lockheed Martin. Okay?